To set up groups in one of your Blackboard course sites, you're first going to come down to your course management panel over here to the left, and then you're going to look for the option called Users and Groups. If you click on that, it's going to open out a few more options, one of which is Groups. If you click on that, that will take you to the interface that will let you set up groups. When you're setting up groups in Blackboard, you have a few different options. If you come up here to the top left of the page, you'll see that there's an option called Create. And if you hover over that, you'll find that you have 5 different ways that you can set up groups. So you can choose to set up one group at a time. That would be the single group option right here. And you can have those groups set up either so that students self-enroll themselves into that group, or that you put them in through the manual enroll option. If you are working with more than one group, you may want to consider doing a group set instead. The group set actually gives you 3 different options for setup. So the first one is that you can set up self-enroll groups. And that means that students will get a list of the groups that they can enroll in, and they can go in and choose their own group. You can edit them after the fact if you have to, but it takes some of the pressure off you as a faculty member to put those groups into place and to put students into them. The second option that you have available to you is this random enroll option. And what that does is it lets Blackboard take all of the students in your class and randomly put them into groups. So if you're looking for random groups, this can be a really easy way to do that. And you can also edit those groups if you need to after the fact. The third option that's available to you is manual enroll. So this will let you create a number of groups at the same time and will let you go in and individually put students into groups. So if, for instance, you're working in a class or you already have groups set up, you can go in and build the groups for students so that they're all ready to go. For the sake of this video, we're going to go to the self-enroll option because it is the one that has the most steps attached to it. If I click on that, that's going to take me through to the page where I can actually set up my groups. Now, the first thing that Blackboard wants here is an option for the name. What Blackboard's going to do when you give it a name is it's going to give every group the same name with a number after it. So if you're setting up a bunch of groups for, say, a class presentation, you could call it Presentation Group. And what you would wind up with is Presentation Group 1, Presentation Group 2, Presentation Group 3. Those can all be edited after the fact, but putting the name in here is the same name that will go to all of the groups. So we'll call that Presentation Group for now. You can choose to put a description here if you would like to, but it's not something that's required. You also have some control over what's available and visible to students. So in most cases, you probably want the group visible to students so that they can see their group and see their group members. If you don't want them to see the group, you can turn it over to sign up sheet only, just so that they see the place where they sign up and nothing else. One of the things that you can decide on as you're setting up groups is what tools you want your students to have available to them. So you'll see that most of the tools on this list here are the standard tools that are available in Blackboard. But what happens with these group instances of the tools is that the tool becomes available as a specific instance of the tool only to students who are in the group. So if you, for instance, chose to have a group discussion board, you would have your regular class discussion board still that all of your students could access, but you would also have an individual discussion board for each group of students that only people in that group and you as the instructor would be able to access. If you're not going to use some of these tools in your class, it's probably worth turning them off so that students don't get confused by them. But you can use any of the tools that are available here to create group-specific instances that only those group members can access. This is also the place where, if you're going to be grading any of this work, you can set that up. So if you were, say, going to do a group blog or a group journal and there was grading attached to that, you could set up the points that are available for that here. Going down a little bit further, you have a few more options that are also available to you. The first one here, called Module Personalization Settings, simply lets students have a little bit more control over how they see the group and the group area. So that one's up to you whether you feel like leaving that one on or not. If you are going with a group where students can sign themselves up, the sign up options is a fairly important one. So your group will need to have a name for the sign up sheet. In this case, I can likely just call it the same thing as what I named the groups. So presentation groups. And then down here, I have some control over things like what the maximum number of members in my group is. So if I don't want a group that has more than 5 people in it, I can go in and I can designate that. I also have control over whether students can see who's in the group before they sign up or not. So if you want students to be able to sign up based on people who are in the group, you would probably want them to be able to see that. If you would rather it be a little bit more based on something like topic rather than other group member, you can certainly leave that off. This default here that allows students to sign up from the group's listing page is also a good idea to leave on, just because it gives them an easy point of access to that sign-up sheet. So the final thing that you need to do is tell Blackboard how many groups you want. So that just comes down to the maximum number of groups that you want in your class. And in this case, let's say we want 6 groups at a maximum. You can also choose to turn on a smart view, which is really just a filter in the Grade Center that will let you look at groups in terms of their individual members. There's no harm in turning it on, even if you don't use it, so feel free if you feel so inclined. And then once you've done all of those settings, you can come down here and click on Submit. And what that will do is it will pull us through to this groups page. And from this groups page, you can access a bunch of different features for your group. So if I click on the drop down next to an individual group, you can see that I've got the option to open the group, which is going to let me see those group tools that I had groups sign up for, and also the group members in that particular group. I also have the option to edit that group if I feel so inclined. So from here, I can change the name, or I can change the individual parameters for any given group. I also have the option to edit my set of groups at the same time. So instead of going to these individual groups, if I come over here and click on the drop down next to the presentation group name here, I have the option to edit my group set properties, which will let me make adjustments for all of the groups at the same time. So again, these are the tools that we were just looking at, and all of the options that we were just filling out. This just lets me change them for each group at a given point in time. I also have the option to see my entire list of groups from here, from where I can see how many people I've got enrolled in each group, whether the groups are self-enrolled or not, and whether that group is available. From this groups page, I also have the option of editing all of my groups at the same time. So if I come here to presentation group, and if I say edit group set membership, this will pull up a list of all of my groups. It will let me change the names for any group that I would like to change the name for. So for instance, if my students were presenting on topics, I could make that change. I also have the option here to add users to each group, or to delete a group if I no longer need it. To make signing up for a group a little bit easier for my students, there are a couple of different things that I can do. The first one is that I can actually put a link to the Groups tool right in this menu up here, which means that when students come in and see that menu, they can just click on the Groups tool to go and access what they need to be able to sign up. To do that, I'm going to come up here to the top left of this menu, and I'm going to look for the option that says Tool Link. If I click on Tool Link, that's going to let me select from a bunch of different tools that are available in my course. So here I'm going to look for the one that's called Groups. I'm going to call it Groups because that's pretty simple and straightforward. Then I'm going to tell Blackboard that yes, I want that to be available to users, and I'm going to click on Submit. And what that will let me do is have my students go directly into this link to sign up for the group that they want to sign up for. Another thing I can do to make group sign up easier for my students is to create a link to the groups in any of my content areas. So if, for instance, I was putting a bunch of information under course documents, I could also put a link to the group tool here. So if I come up here to this option in the menu called Tools, I can come down to Groups, and that's going to let me put in either a link to the groups page or a link to a specific group or a group set. So in this case, I think I might go with the specific group set, and then I can tell Blackboard that I want to go specifically to the presentation groups. And if I click on Next, Blackboard is going to ask me just a little bit about how I want that link to show up. So I'm going to call it presentation group because I've been calling everything presentation group, but you can edit that if you want. I probably don't need a lot of description here, but you're welcome to put some in if you think it will be helpful to your students. And then for something like this, yep, I probably want that to be available to students. I can choose to track the views if I feel so inclined, and I can put on date restrictions if I would rather have that available from a certain day or only until a certain day. So if I click on Submit from here, that is going to put my link to the presentation group here. And if I click on that, I can see some information about each of my groups. From a student perspective, signing up for groups is pretty straightforward. So if I were a student in this class, I could come over here to the groups link in that menu, just click on that, and that will pull up any sign-up sheets that are available to me. So I can see here that I have my presentation group sign-up sheet, and if I click on that sign-up sheet, I can choose to sign up for any of these groups that are available to me. Now once I've done that, I don't have the option to take myself out of the group, but if you as an instructor need to move students around, you can edit the groups after the fact and make those changes if you need to. One of the advantages of using groups in your Blackboard is that it lets you actually assign group assignments. And what that does from a grading perspective is it lets you put in the grade and feedback for one person in the group, and that grade and feedback will go to everybody in the group at the same time. So you don't have to worry about that information being disseminated by the one student who has it. And it also means that from a grading perspective, it's a little easier than having to put in multiple grades for the multiple students in a group. So if I were going to apply this to an assignment, for instance, I could go in and build an assignment. So go to my assignments content area of the course. And if I came up here to assessments and came down to assignment, I would have the same options that I usually do. But to set up a group assignment, I'm looking for the option down here called submission details. And if I click on that, I'll find that I have the option to set to a group submission. And if I click on that, that's going to let me tell Blackboard that I want this particular assignment to apply to these groups. So I just choose the groups that I want from my list of groups, I move them over here, and then when I click on Submit to finish the assignment, they'll be good to go. The only thing to be aware of with this is that to set up group assignments in Blackboard, you do have to have the group set up prior to setting up the assignment, because you're basically saying that this assignment applies to these groups rather than building the groups out of the assignment. What happens when students submit assignments as a group is that anyone in the group can actually submit on behalf of the group. So if I were a student going to submit, I can go to my assignments, and let's say I have a group assignment that's available to me. If I'm coming in here to submit, I submit just like I normally would. So I will grab a file from my computer that I can put in here. I will see, however, down here that this is an assignment that's attached to a group. And if I go and submit on behalf of my group, I will get this little warning here that says that work is being submitted for the entire group. Should I continue? In this case, I'm going to go with yes, but the idea is that there's a warning there just to get students to think and make sure that they are submitting the final version of something and that it's something that the group has all agreed to, because it's going to apply to all of them. So if I click on OK, that assignment will go through just as it normally would. I will see it on the page as it slowly loads, and then I can confirm that, yeps, that's good to go. As an instructor, I can grade group assignments pretty much the same way I would grade an individual assignment. If I come over here to my course management panel, under Grade Center, there's going to be an option called Needs Grading. If I click on that, that will show me any assignment attempts that are available. In this case, though, I will see the attempt as being the attempt of a group rather than the attempt of an individual. To grade that, I can click on the user attempt, and that will take me through to Blackboard's inline grading tool. So this works very much the same way as it does for an individual assignment. I still have feedback options. I can write on the assignment, I can put comments on it. I can also use this really thin blue bar here to put in some feedback to the learners, and this feedback will go to all students in the group rather than just an individual. And from here, I can put in a grade for this student assignment. So if I say that this is, say, 20 out of 25, that's totally fine. And if I submitted the assignment as it was right now, using the Submit button down here, that grade would be applied to all students in the group. However, I do have the option, if I come down a little bit further, I can change grades individually. So if something needs to be adjusted, if I need to make that change, I can click on this little edit button. I can say, that this student got a little bit less than the other students, and then I can approve that override. So there is some flexibility around that. And when I'm done with all of that, I can click on Submit, and all of the grades will be returned to the students who are associated with that group.